Hey guys, this is PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading Spoiler Alert, I Really Love You by xraw_anger007. The summary is, Tim's been distant, and Stephanie's wondering if it's time to call it quits on their relationship. Alright, and without further ado, let's hop right in. Stephanie Brown, aka Spoiler, Waffle Queen, Eggplant Enthusiast, and Boy Wonder No. 3's #1 fan. Stephanie thought to herself in a voice suspiciously like Ryan Reynolds. It was Valentine's Day, and Stephanie returned, albeit reluctantly, to her apartment where she was hoping the clueless Wonder would realize that she took precedence over a murder case. But alas, it seemed she was wrong, again. She was about to block out from her apartment, to which she could eat all the mashed potatoes she wanted while sobbing over how stupid her adorable boyfriend really was, and how he seemed to keep forgetting about her. It was then that she saw a colorful monstrosity in the form of a banner covered in sparkling glitter. And Stephanie? She was fucking speechless. If it wasn't for the fact that it was ghastly and ridiculous, she would have missed it. But what took her breath away was the writing in big, bold purple writing. Spoiler alert, I really love you. Immediately, Stephanie knew who the culprit was, and she had to get closer to the banner. Not to see what it said or anything, everyone could see that, but to get a picture of it and capture the moment forever. As she stood a decent distance away, she pulled out her phone and unlocked it using her passcode, but took a second to look at her screensaver. It was a picture of her and Tim from a few years ago. It was one of their real dates as Stephanie and Tim, not Robin or Spoiler, where they had finally gone to a skate park and Tim tried, emphasis on the tried, to teach Stephanie how to use a skateboard. He had already converted Cass and was determined to do the same with Stephanie, but it proved a moot point not only because Stephanie was terrible at it. She had scraped her knees and elbows badly, and her butt was sore from landing on it so many times that day, and promised she would never skateboard again. But it was also because she wasn't concentrating completely. She had told Tim it was something about her situation at home, and he had dropped it, and was overly sweet to her. Not that she really minded. The real reason, though, the reason was that Stephanie couldn't take her eyes off of Tim. Not because she couldn't control herself and wanted to jump him, though he certainly made her want to at times, but it was because he was grinning a big, bright grin full of teeth that was purely Tim Drake. And his eyes? His bright, blue eyes that never failed to take her breath away, were truly sparkling, and being lost in the moment she whipped out her phone, wrapped an arm around his shoulder and smushed their cheeks together with a bright grin, and took the photo that was currently her screensaver. Taking a breath in, she raised her phone and waited for the camera to focus on the quite frankly huge banner, and took a photo of the sweet gesture. Now she had to find her stupidly handsome and incapable of small gestures, the boyfriend Wonder. Before she really had the chance to, he found her. He dropped behind her with a rose in hand, slightly nervous about her reaction, and tapped her on the shoulder. As she turned in surprise, almost knocking his head off with the roundhouse kick, she instinctively lashed out with before he dodged. She gasped at the rose in hand and the bright grin he was sporting. For a moment, Tim was scared because she gasped and pulled her hands to her face and kind of just stood there frozen and totally not moving. Tim, for better of himself, tried not to let his face fall or be overly nervous at her reaction, but it was getting to him as it seemed a minute had passed. "Stephanie?" Tim questioned cautiously. As if being kicked into gear, Stephanie blinked her big blue eyes and pulled down her half mask and hood down, freeing her hair, and to Tim she looked angelic, as if her golden hair were a halo of an angel, his own personal angel. She gave him a bright grin and smooched her lips in full to his and grasped the long strands of hair he had grown out that she liked to tug on. And Tim, like the genius he was, shut down at the open affection. As Steph pulled away from the kiss, Tim tried to follow her and keep the kiss going. Steph giggled and put a finger to his lips, and he pouted at the obvious refusal, but obeyed anyway. As Stephanie pulled her finger away, she took the nearly forgotten rose from the compliant Boy Wonder. "This was unexpected, but great, Tim," Stephanie said after she had examined and smelt the fresh rose. "Yeah, well, I wanted to do something special without you knowing, so I did, well, this and that," Tim finished lamely by gesturing to the banner and the rose. "Well, I loved it anyway," Stephanie breathlessly replied, still examining the rose and therefore missing the small sigh of relief from the red robin-clad Tim Drake. "Thank God. I wasn't sure if you'd like an over-the-top Valentine's Day gift or just a simple one, so I asked Dick, and he said to go extravagant, And then I asked Babs, and she got a faraway look in her eyes and said to keep it simple. And Cass just looked at me with a smile, and then I was really confused, and Tim babbled until Steph rolled her eyes and pressed her lips to his. Well, like I said, I loved it. It was perfect, Tim. Stephanie smirked at his blush. So, it was perfect? Tim asked with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Yep, Stephanie said, popping the pea. Just like the perfect girl it was for. Yeah, wait, what? Did you just call me perfect? Oh my god, you did a flirt, Stephanie teased him. If you wanted to flirt, you should have just said so. For example, if kissing is the language of love, why don't we go have a long talk? She finished by waggling her eyebrows. He blushed. Your lips look lonely. Would they like to meet mine? I'm gonna go to, finish patrol, Tim uttered out before literally running away with bright red cheeks. Once she was sure he was gone, she let out a loud laugh and had to hold her sides from the laugh that erupted from her. As she quieted down, she had to wipe away a tear and chuckled a little bit more before adjusting her hidden mask and pulling out her grapple gun. Sometimes it's just too easy to make your boyfriend blush. And with that, she sailed into the night with a smile on her face. Alright guys, and that's the end of Spoiler Alert, I Really Love You by Extra Anger 007. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next video.